What I learned after a year with the Mini 14. April 2024, I picked up a Ruger Mini 14 to create the 10-episode series in shorts. My intention was to do the series and then sell the rifle. It didn't exactly work out as planned. The rifle found a home above the fireplace. But it did not start out with such favor. For starters, the front sling attachment point was too wide to install a 1 1/4 inch sling swivel. In episode 1, I fixed the sling situation. I also found the rear peep sight was too far away from my eye to get the clarifying effect of the aperture. This was improved in episode 2 by cutting down the stock, switching to a thin butt plate, and installing tech sights, creating a 12 5/8 inch length of pull, about the same as an M1 Garand. But the butt to peep length was still an inch longer than an AR, set to an equivalent trigger length of pull. The front sight is kind of thick, and it has to be filed down to make elevation changes to the point of impact, as long as you need to raise that point of impact. I wish tech sights offered a Mini 14 front sight similar to their offering for the 1022. About 1 pound heavier than our lightweight iron sight Ambi AR, the Mini is a bit heavier than your typical AR, but overall height is about half. Line of sight is less than an inch above the bore compared to 2.5 inches on the AR. Beneficial if you're dealing with intervening barriers at short range. Mini 14 fans champion the forward piston-driven action. I really have no preference compared to the AR's direct impingement BCG internal piston, but I found the Mini 14's handguard tended to get overly hot, too hot to handle without gloves, so I tried the Choate Machine ventilated handguard to vent the heat. I also went with the Accuracy Systems adjustable gas block to reduce the amount of hot gas being dumped beneath the handguard. After getting the gas dialed in, brass was no longer being launched into the next county, recoil was reduced, and the handguard ran much cooler, even with long strings of rapid fire. But I did find that with the op rod being exposed by the choke handguard, I could accidentally generate a malfunction if my support hand gripped too hard, especially when shooting left-handed. For this reason, I restored the stock Ruger handguard to keep my hand off the op rod, even more important when running softer shooting 223. With no buttstock buffer tube, you can use the buttstock as a club and be confident that things will keep cycling, or install a Samson folder stock. Folding stock, I'll pass. If I want a folding backpack carbine, I'll go with the SU-16C. The Mini's supreme advantage is social acceptability. Don't fuck it up with a folding stock and pistol grip, or big-assed optic awkwardly mounted high above the Ruger's action. I prefer a bare muzzle 18.5 inch barrel over the 16.5 inch, fitted with the flash hider. Long 22 3/4 inch sight radius, 2 more inches for velocity, and a more complete burn, that is some flash reduction. The old 180 series Mini 14 gave the Ruger's rifle a reputation for poor accuracy. The 580 series is much better. In my 5.56 bench rest test, link in the description, the Mini 14 shot almost exactly the same group size as my iron-sighted AR. In fact, 16 thousandths minute of angle better than the AR. And while I generally shoot the Mini offhand better than the AR, I generally shoot the AR better prone and squatting. No pistol grip, smooth stock means less drag coming out of the scabbard, and less social drag if you're surrounded by bedwetters. Magazine operation. I have no preference between inserting AR mags versus rock-in Mini 14 mags. The Mini 14 mags do drop free if the rifle is held horizontal. Rock-in helps seat a full mag under a closed bolt and reduces the need for the tap tug to check that it's seated. But Mini 14 mags weigh nearly twice that of Stanags. This means that for every 4 to 5 mags in your AR loadout, you get 1 free, weight-wise, compared to the Mini. The Ruger mags cost more than twice as much as AR mags, which means you can buy 10 AR mags and the ammo to fill them twice for the price of just 10 empty Ruger mags. The Mini 14 trigger is pretty good, better than an AR mil-spec trigger, but not quite as good as a Geisley. I also appreciate the robust safety that captures both the sear and the hammer. While I am semi-ambivalent on the Mini 14 versus AR debate, the excessively long buttstock, peep too far forward, unconventional front sling mount, and the pinchy mag release makes it kind of hard to recommend for the new shooter. But coming from the sailing world, it is like sailing a classic wood boat versus a more refined and modern fiberglass one. From paintball, it was like holding out with a mechanical autococker as electronic guns rose to prominence. There is almost a spiritual connection with the Mini 14. You know, I just try to get along with people and try not to kill anyone. If you're new to firearms and looking for your first rifle, I suggest starting with a 1022. Attend a Project Appleseed Rifle Marksmanship Clinic to earn your rifleman patch before you even think about purchasing a centerfire rifle. The Mini 14 is a good ambidextral rifle, so if you want to capitalize on ambidextrous optimal use of cover, do not put a buttstock ammo pouch on it. But for those learning to be ambidextrous, I recommend starting out with a red dot. The illumination helps draw your untrained eye to the sighting system so that your brain can switch to a bilateral transfer of skill baseline. Starting ambi training with the Mini 14 iron sights is a needlessly tall hurdle. Exercise your ambi skills with a red dot mounted atop a 1022's receiver pick rail. Develop your marksmanship technique and ambi your eyes with the 1022, and then start thinking about AR versus Mini 14 versus RDB, and don't rule out the possibility that the 22 LR rifle is all you need. I would literally prefer a Project Appleseed 1022 rifleman beside me than the typical AR LARPer. I would prefer to hand a 22 rifle to an experienced ambi paintball player to join me in battle over the average AR builder. Better a precision in-the-field marksman with a Tikka T1X or the CZ457 over stopwatched, obsessed maze runners with an AR. See the AmbGun video on the Micro 14 Ruger 1022. That desirability is magnified when considering Mini 14 versus AR versus RDB. All things being equal, I do prefer my ambi AR over the RDB or Mini 14, but again, I'd rather a paintballer with the RDB or the rifleman with a Mini in the trenches with me over any non-ambi AR shooter or the typically immobile lead sled fooled by randomness reloader. If Selco's experience in Sarajevo is any indication, better to be skilled with a 22 rimfire than a pretender with a centerfire. But which would you choose to quell or pilot an insurrection? If landing at St. Malo to retake the guillotine-bloodied streets of 2093 Paris, I may very well want the added range of centerfire, and the classic wood lines of the Mini 14 might help me slip beneath the radar of a modern-day Robespierre or Simberdane. Pop quiz. You have 5 minutes to prepare for 2 non-ambi bad guys with ARs. We both have Mini 14s. Are you discouraged? What are our odds of prevailing? If we swap those minis for ARs, now what are our odds? Our odds of winning if we have only bolt-action 22s. If Randy Shugart knew in advance what he was getting into with the Mogadishu Black Hawk Down situation, which would have been his favorite loadout? The M14 with 7 20-round mags, or the equivalent in weight 1022 with 2,000 rounds of 22 LR? M14 versus Mini 14 versus the Micro 14 configured 1022. For the sake of holding out for a quick reaction force, I'd rather drop in with the 22. Of course, a psychological stop from a booming M14 might be worth more than the added kill volume of 22. Thinking more conventionally of the Black Hawk Down situation, a 6.5 pound AR would include 400 rounds for the same weight as Shugart's kit. These heavy Mini 14 mags drops its ammo loadout to about 250 rounds, and that is the real reason the Mini is defeated by the AR. Reduced ammo loadout and more total rifle mass to maneuver snap shooting from cover. But I still won't sell it. Be sure to check out the AmbGun Mini 14 page for the Mini 14 series and shorts and more. Link in the description.